This presentation is the second part of the lifting line work presentation and why that is so important. Now, back in the day, we designers used to have to produce a lot of ideation drawings, sketches, and renderings, many of them in color. To do this, we employed the use of dry markers in order to color things in, and it was a laborious process. What you're looking at here are some presentation drawings that I did for the 8th Air Force Museum located in Atlanta, Georgia. These were done in about 1998. As I said, we use dry markers like these. I particularly like this brand as it came in a wide range of colors. I was perpetually wearing them out and generally had somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 markers or more. Most sets were 200 colors plus, but you continually had to replace them. They both had a thick and a fine line end that utilized the same ink reservoir. As we go through these, I can explain what is going on here. The museum was for the 8th Air Force, which was a bomber group in World War II. They fought in Europe and were stationed in England and would bomb armament factories and strategic points in Germany. This is a display of a P-51 Mustang fighter airplane which was used to accompany the bombers for protection. The museum was going to be pretty big, well, big enough to house full-size airplanes, and portions of actual planes used as dioramas, like this maintenance shot taken during the nighttime. The point here, though, is to show you how much had to go into producing these renderings. We had to employ the use of specific types of paper because you couldn't get anything to work with the markers. You had to use like real expensive blotter type paper. Now the paper and the markers were expensive. And we quite often had to produce these renderings in duplicate because we were putting them together into multiple presentation booklets, and often had to blow these up photographically and mount them for bigger presentations, where these might also accompany scale models of various aspects of the museum design, which were pertinent to understanding things like, well, where are you located at here in the museum? And how much space does this occupy? And so on. Our job was to create immersive environments that visitors would move through while viewing life-size recreations of actual places and events. This was the reason for producing these sketches. Now, about 20 years ago, we began employing different techniques to do the same thing, and that is what this presentation is going to show you. This is another sketch for a proposal on the United States Marine Corps Museum, which would have been located in Quantico, Virginia. The actual museum is now located in a place called Triangle. It is a larger drawing than the previous ones, which were 11 by 17, so that they could be color photocopied. This was drawn at 18 by 24 inches. The distinction here being that is one produced so that its line work could actually be lifted and have color added later. Again, this depicts an actual size airplanes and equipment in an immersive environment that people actually walk through. Now this sketch, which I probably have shown you before, was of a science museum in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It was done at exactly the same size as 18 by 24 inches in line work only, and then later colorized, like this. Here are some other renderings for the Marine Corps Museum showing you the same lifting technique. The reason why this has become so popular is that it saves an immense amount of time and money in producing these sketches because they are ultimately digitally reproduced on a computer and can then be recreated in any size necessary and can be readily recolorized at any point should something need to change, or if you've made a mistake. In these renderings, you quite frequently would screw something up and the whole rendering would be lost. So if you do it first as line work only, you can always go back and save things. That is the part of the video of what follows here.
So the next stage in this process is to take this drawing and scan it and use it for lifting. Now, this one was drawn to 11 by 17, which works out fine because you can divide it equally into halves and scan it. Other drawings, if drawn out to the full scale of this piece of vellum here, would probably require that you need to take it somewhere and have it scanned, unless you have a large-scale scanner somewhere in your home that you can do that with. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and trim this out, and then we will scan it in. So we're just going to free it up from this piece of paper completely, and we'll have it down to two 8.5 by 11s, which will fit into my scanner just fine. Don't panic. We'll be able to piece this back together, and then I'll show you how to lift the Linework. I had a video that showed that already, but we'll be doing it with this one, and then I'll show you how you can colorize your image and add other things in. Anyway, there's the two halves, and we'll piece this back together now using the scanner. More when we get over to the computer.
Okay, so I'm now ready to begin bringing my image in from the scanner. So I'm going to do File, and we're going to do Import, and WA Export, and OK. And now I will be seeing the image here in a minute. I'm going to scan this at 300 dpi, just because that's advisable. And scan. So this will bring in the left-hand portion of the image. And there it is. And now we're going to do the same thing for the right-hand portion. Oh, import, WA export, start. Okay. And again, we want to make sure that we've got that saved at 300 dpi. Okay. And scan. Okay, so now I have both halves, and you'll notice that they're coming out at 8.5 by 11. Quick, I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to change my pixels to inches, and I'm going to make sure that I have a width of 17 and a height of 8.5, and I'm going to make sure that I'm working with a 300 DPI, so we got an apples to apples here, and create. And now we're going to do Control V, Command V, paste that in. There we are. We're much better. Edit, transform, and we'll do scale first and bring this down. I'm going to hold Alt so that I'm reducing from the center. Place it in there. Now you'll notice my image had a little bit of space at the bottom, because when it was scanned oversized top to bottom. There's some gray space down here. So there we go. Got that part into position. I'm going to go back here and find the other part and do be on that layer and do Control A, Control C, or Command A, Command C, and go back to my document and do Command or Control V. Paste the other half in and do Edit and Transform and Scale. And again, holding down my Alt key so that I reduce it from the center. Now I've got the second half of my drawing. And it's a little bit different. I'm going to have to muck around with this a little bit till I get them positioned to the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause this for a moment and get it positioned, and then we will carry on. All right, now that I've got it kind of positioned the way that I want it to be. The next thing I'm going to do is merge everything down into one layer. So I'm going to go to a layer and merge visible. That gets everything onto one layer. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it so that we get rid of all the excess beyond the edges of that, the trim marks and everything. There we go. Image crop. Still got a little bit of black showing on the other portion of it over here. Straighten that out. And the other thing that I need to do is I need to brighten it. And the reason that that's the case is because I have a dark piece of board behind the platen on my copier, and it's vellum. You can see through it a little bit. So we're going to do image and crop again. And that's resulted in it being a little grayer than it would be if I had a white piece behind it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to image and adjustment and brightness contrast and brighten this up a whole lot and bring the contrast up so that we have it really nice and bright and white. Looks like I'm probably about ready to go here. The first thing I'm going to want to do is unlock that layer there. And if it's a smart object, I want to make sure that it is rasterized. It looks like it is already rasterized, and it probably did that when I was cropping it or downsizing or one of the two. But anyway, it is now all on one layer, and it is rasterized. So now that we've got it positioned and everything's okay, we're going to call this the original. I'm going to pause this for just a second. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer underneath everything here and create a white background. So with my field set to white, make sure it's white. I'm going to make that 6 Fs and go in and dump white into that field. Yeah, that's what I want. So I've got my white background here. And my original layer. And now I'm going to do the lift layer. So I'm going to go onto the lift layer here, the original, and I'm going to do Control A and Control C, which copies the whole thing. And then after that, I'm going to go into my channels layer. And in channels, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it Linework. Oop, typing in the layer, Linework. And that will be important here in a moment. Edit, and we'll paste it in there. So there it is. It's now in the Linework layer in the channels. So we're going to go back out to layers now, and I'm going to be on my original. I'm going to turn my original off for right now, and I'm going to go find that layer in the channels. Hold on just a second. All right. Pardon me there, I had to go and shut off my mail from school because they kept chiming in here and interrupting this. Okay, so we've created a new layer here, and we're going to name that layer Linework. And what we're going to do is we're going to load it. I'm going to turn off my selection here so that we're just dealing with just the Linework layer. We're going to go to Select, and we're going to go to Load Selection, and we're going to go tell the load selection where we want to get that from. We want to get it from the Linework channel, and we're going to say OK. And then we've got marching ants going around all of the Linework from the Linework layer. Now, if I were to take and change the color of my brush here to 6 zeros, and start coloring in, I'm going to make a mistake. And the reason that is because it's going to color in the background and not the image. So what I want to do is show you first that that's what will happen. I'm going to make my brush really big. You'll see it's starting to do, it's going to give you the inverse of what you want. So we're going to do Edit, Undo the brush, and we're going to do Select Inverse, so that now we're just going to be doing just the line work. So I'm going to take and make my brush fairly large here and start going across the image back and forth. Now, I conceivably could have done this in any color that I want to. And what I'll do here is I'll make another layer. I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to turn in another line work layer. I'm going to make this one brown line work just to show you that it can be done. We'll call that one brown line work. This is if you wanted to create a sepia tone line work drawing. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go to select and load selection from the line work and say OK. And now I've done it again. I may have to invert that, and I think I do. So I'm going to go select inverse, and I'm going to change my color on my palette down here to something brown. We'll go in here, grab something right about there, and say OK. And now I'm going to go in and use my magic wand tool, and you can see it's, as you can see, it's creating a different color for the drawing. Now what that did was it brought in just the line work. Okay, so I'm going to shut that off and show you what I mean. Here's the original, and the line work and all of the white background are all on the same layer. And that's going to make this really difficult to color in because the line work is going to get in the way of whatever you're trying to put in there. But in this particular case, the line work isn't part of the background. It's a separate layer altogether. And that's going to make it a lot easier. Say, for instance, if we wanted to go in and begin coloring in, let's say we wanted to make the carpet, let's make it something really garish. We'll make it orange. So let's say we wanted to make the color of the carpet orange. So I'm going to make a layer here underneath the line work. And I'm going to call it carpet. And I'm going to use my magic, or use my paintbrush tool, but I want to make sure I've got a hard edge to it, even though it's going to be, and then I can go in here and begin to color this in. Now the beauty of this is that if I extend beyond something, and let's say for instance I don't want this leg of the drawing board to be that color, I can go into that layer right there and use my magnetic lasso tool or my polygonal lasso tool, and I can go down here. Whoop. Got off the line. And then back up here and over. As long as I'm on the carpet layer and hit delete, it will delete that for me. So it makes it a lot easier to clean up my drawing when I want to. Now, if you remember when we looked at the marker renderings that I showed you a little while ago, how much more difficult this is to do, because if you make a mistake in marker, it's right on the line work drawing that you've got. And so then you got to scrap the whole thing and start all over again. So you can see how this kind of stuff will help you a lot in being able to take renderings and drawings and things like that and color them in and not have so much sensitivity to things. If you make a mistake, you can just simply turn the layer off and start over again with a different one, and you still have your line work preserved. It's in the original, and you've got different versions of it dependent upon what you want to do. And then when you're all done and you've got everything colored in and you don't want the line work anymore, you can simply turn off the line work. So you can see how much more freedom this gives you than the way things used to be done. I hope this helps. I will see you guys in the next video.